Welcome to Gandhara People Teacher Online Study Point, and today our topic is principles of teaching. So as we all know that teaching is a social process, and teaching is much influenced by philosophy or sociology, or you can say psychology. So there is a diversity in teaching principle because it is expected for a teacher to make use of these teaching principles in order to make his teaching effective. So principles of teaching are used to make teaching effective. A teacher, if applies principle of teaching in his teaching strategy, so he will be able to bring behavioral change in the students. And in order to make the process more effective, different kinds of principles have been given by educationists and psychologists and researchers, and which have been using by teachers in their teaching. All the teaching principles are based on science as well as psychology as well as sociology. So there are different kinds of principles of teaching. What a principle in teaching is, it is a guide which basically it keeps the instructional activities pointed in right direction. So effective teaching is always the utilization of basic principles and directing the learning of others. Types of teaching principles, as I said earlier, that principles of teaching are basically formulated by opinions of experts, educationists, and psychologists. And comparative studies have been taken with the teachers, and experiment studies have been given. And after that, teaching principles have been divided into three categories. First is general principles of teaching. Second is psychological principles of teaching. And third one is teaching maxims, which I have covered in separate video. You can go and watch it. So, general principles of teaching, these are all are general principles of teaching on the basis of researches, experiments, and general conditions which have been conducted in the fields of teaching. General principles have been developed, and all these you are seeing on the screen are general principles of teaching, and I'm going to tell you one by one. First one is principle of definite objective. So any content or any teaching, yeah, any topic should its objective should be clear and definite. Definite means fully defined. Second is principle of adaptability and flexibility. The teaching process is a lively process which is a two-way process, like it is between teacher as well as a student. So it should be adaptable as well as flexible. A creativity or you can say a flexibility should be there so that teaching can become favorable for the student. Third is principle of activity. So the process of teaching and learning should be active. It should be activity. It means that teacher and student should actively participate in the process. It should be always two-way communication, not one. Fourth is principle of democracy behavior. Democratic system or democratic type of teaching should be there in a classroom because it is most appropriate for the development of students' personality, because it gives an opportunity for self-reflection and self-reflection as well as independent expression. So independent expression should be given to the students by the teacher. प्रिंसिपल ऑफ प्रीवियस एक्सपेरिमेंट, पूर्व ज्ञान से संबंधित बच्चों को जानकर उसके अकॉर्डिंग नॉलेज देनी चाहिए. Sixth is principle of child oriented education. Because a teacher must, you can say, must teach as well as according to child's age, ability, mental level, interest, etc. A teacher should have, a good teacher always have a knowledge of his students' abilities, needs, interests, aptitudes, age, and mental levels. Thus, he make this teaching a child oriented. Seventh is principle of individual difference. So we all know each student has distinct intelligence, abilities, interests, and capabilities. So when they come in the classroom, they have a certain kind of diversity. A good teacher should always keep in mind the individual differences in his students while teaching or while preparing his lesson plans. Next is principle of relation with real life. A good teacher always relates all the activities or content in relation to actual life of the student, so the student can learn at application level. Whatever he is learning, he should be able to relate it with the real life. Next is principles of correlation. It means that there should be correlation. A subject should be linked with other subject. Correlation between subject to subject. Science plus art. For example, uh, you have to connect एक topic जो है, if you are teaching a topic in science, you should be teaching that topic in, you can say, Hindi also sometime. So आपको सब विषयों में कोरिलेशन करना अच्छा है. जैसे एग्जांपल के तौर पे आप ड्राइंग सिखाते हो, तो ड्राइंग में आप बच्चे को ड्रॉ करना सिखाते हो और मैथ सिखाते हो, उसमें डिग्रीज सिखाते हो. सो जैसे अगर आपको ड्राइंग बनानी है, तो अगर आपने ड्राइंग में आपको सर्कल फॉर्म करना है, तो क्योंकि बच्चे ने मैथ्स में कंपास से सर्कल फॉर्म करना सीखा है, तो उसको आर्ट में भी वो कोरिलेट करके सीख सकता है. तो देयर शुड बी कोरिलेशन बिटवीन डिफरेंट डिफरेंट सब्जेक्ट्स. 10th इज प्रिंसिपल ऑफ सिलेक्शन. Principle of selection, that a teacher should always select the content as per as objectives of teaching. टीचिंग जो भी है उसके अकॉर्डिंग ही कंटेंट का सिलेक्शन होना चाहिए. नेक्स्ट इज प्रिंसिपल ऑफ इफेक्टिव स्ट्रैटेजीज. A teacher should select, construct, and apply suitable strategies for teaching. He should always keep in mind the need level and previous knowledge. Need level of students. 12th is principles of favorable atmosphere and proper control. A favorable, suitable environment is always needed for the teaching, and there should be cleanliness, there should be proper light, there should be proper ventilation in the class. Seat arrangement in class. And 12th is next is, or final one, is principles of remedial teaching. It says that there should be, a teacher should always be able to find out the student's shortcoming and weaknesses in order to diagnose and remedy them. Thus it helps to attain the class level. So there shortcomings of students must be diagnosed. There are many more to it, like principle of division, that content should be divided in small units before presenting to the students. There should be principle of cooperation, so there should be mutual cooperation between teachers and students. Principle of revision, that a teacher should always repeat a lesson for learning and exercising. Principle of activity, according to Frebel, learning by doing is the best method. So principle of activity state that whatever a student is learning should be done by learning by doing. So these are the general principles of teaching. Now, next is psychological principles of teaching. Because education has transformed itself into child-oriented education, so the concept of child education is the gift of psychology, which means that education should be imparted as according to students' age, abilities, capabilities, mental levels, interests, etc. So, keeping in view child psychology. Psychologists have constructed different kinds of principles for effective teaching. So, first one is principle of motivation. Motivation and interest. So, motivation and interest both play important role in teaching process. So, a teacher should always motivate the students to learn and work with interest, which make the learning process very, very effective. Next is principles of repetition and exercise. We It is a well known fact by Thorndike's law also, that whatever we repeat, acquired knowledge is exercised and it helps to retain. So repetition and exercise should be given place in the teaching process, because repetition helps in better learning. Third is principle of readiness. This is whatever is taught to student, the student should be mentally prepared, mentally ready for it. If the student is not able to mental readiness, he is not able to learn, or he is not ready for learning, so he will not be able to learn whatever you are going to teach, no matter how effective it is, because a child is not mentally ready. So a student should take interest in learning. So students mental maturity should always be kept in view. Fourth is principle of feedback and reinforcement. A student should always uh, you can say the student should always there should be always a provision of feedback, and reward should be given for good behavior. Reward for good behavior. And students should be constantly asked whether they are able to understand the content or not. If they are not able to to if they are not able to read their content, they should be asking the teacher for a repeat lecture, so that there always be a better learning. And there should be provision of relearn and repeat. A teacher should cultivate a habit of feedback and reinforcement also, in order to make the teaching learning process more effective. The fifth is principle of change, rest, and recreation. It said that teaching work lags behind in boredom, because if there is long teaching, the students will get bored. So there should be change in method of teaching. Student must be given mental rest, so that they can refresh their mind and again start learning. And there should be process of recreation during teaching learning process, so that learning should be very, very effective. Sixth is principle of sense training. Sense training means a teacher should guide student in such a way that they make effort for self learning. And the habit of service. मतलब these two principles are given in same way. Sense training and self learning, it is the same. Sense training means learning through senses, all the five senses. Knowledge should be imparted by all the five senses, so that they can learn better. And principle of self learning says that there should be a habit of self study inculcated in the students. To self learn, self confidence, and self dependent. A teacher should make a student, or you can say inculcate the habit of self learning in the students, so can they develop self confidence and they are self dependent in that process. The next is principle of group dynamics. Psychology says that students learn better in groups, so should a teacher should also use group dynamics in his class. Next is principle of creativity and self-expression. So there should be, you can say, a environment given to the student in teaching where they can present their own thoughts, ideas, their own discoveries, and their original creations, which should be using, you can say, encouraged by the teacher. If a student is presenting some new idea, some original idea or thoughts of his own, a teacher should always give him opportunity for self expression, their own ideas, and should encourage the students for their own creativity. And final one is principle of sympathy and cooperation. So there should be a, you can say, environment in the class where sympathy and cooperation should be shown by the teacher toward the students, because there are lots of different kinds of students coming from different kinds of backgrounds. So student should be sympathetic and should be cooperative for his own students, so that students and teachers get more connectivity with them, with in the, or you can say with each other. Now, utility of teaching principles, or you can say what are the advantages of teaching principles. So, they are same as maxims of teaching. First of all, they are real and scientific. They are valid and reliable. They guide teaching learning process in effective way. They are authentic mode of teaching learning process. Fifth is they are useful in all kinds of teaching. They are according to students, learners' ability. And you can write many more utilities of teaching principles, because you have learned these things. Uh, they are very effective. They make the teaching process very effective. They are based on definite objectives. They are very very adaptive. They are reliable. They can be used in different strategies for getting good marks. So you can elaborate these points in your own languages also. So I hope these teaching principles, psychological and general, both are clear to you all. and keep writing your notes and ask me anything if you want to, like, in comment section. Thanks for watching Gyandhara. Please like, share and subscribe.